George Herman Ruth Jr. was born on February 6, 1895 in Baltimore, Maryland.
He was born in a German household and learned the language at a young age. His parents, Catherine and George, were of Prussian and Hanover descent, making him strong in the German culture. Growing up for George was quite rough. Unfortunately, out of 8 children, only he and his younger sister, Mamie, survived infancy.
Now, as a child, George was very unruly. His father owned a saloon where George would smuggle beer when his father wasn't looking. Babe also rarely made an appearance at school, and when he did, he always caused havoc and caused a disruption.
Eventually, his parents noticed their child's behavior and sent him to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys at the age of 7. George would spend the next 12 years of his life here. The only time he was permitted to leave was to see his parents. When he was 12 years old, he visited home to attend his mother's funeral.
Fortunately, George found his true passion at the school, baseball. He was a lefty and was always forced to use righty mitts when playing a position. One of the staff at the school, Brother Matthias, took a liking to George. He would spend days and nights working on George's form, techniques, and mechanics. They would spend so much time together on baseball that George became a prospect in baseball. When he was 19 years old, St. Mary's invited the team owner of the Baltimore Orioles, Jack Dunn, to watch George play. Within 1 hour of watching George, Jack was already impressed. Dunn became his legal guardian so that he could legally adopt George onto the team. Once the players found about Jack's new player, they began to call George Jack's new babe. This became one of the most famous names in sports history. Later on, his teammates shortened the name and called him Babe Ruth, and they incorporated his last name. That same year, Babe was drafted by the Orioles in 1914. He met his first wife, Helen Woodford. She and Babe got married in 1914, and their marriage was awesome at the start. But unfortunately, as Babe grew more popular, their marriage got worse. They adopted a daughter named Dorothy and loved her very much, and they cared for her. But Babe started to care more about baseball and the public than his wife. Unfortunately, in 1921, Helen and Babe got divorced. While all of this was occurring, Babe continued to play baseball. He only lasted with the Orioles for a year before being traded to the Boston Red Sox. He began to start as a pitcher with very few at-bats. He was then sent down to the minor league team for a year due to a filled roster, and led the Providence Grays to an international pennant appearance. Finally, in 1915, Babe became a starter in the major leagues as a pitcher. He pitched for 3 years, accumulating an ERA under 2.0 average in all 3 years. After his season of 1918, Boston felt Babe had too good of a bat to be stuck as a pitcher, so they moved him from the pitching mound to right field, where he began to break home run records like no other. And in 1919, he ended his year with 29 home runs, which has never been done before in that time.
Little did he know this would be the last time he wore a Red Sox jersey. In 1920, Babe was traded to the New York Yankees for $100,000 with much controversy. So was born the curse of the Bambino. This was the phrase that Red Sox fans used to explain why their losing streak was so imminent. He was put into right field yet again and let his bat do the talking. At the end of the 1920 season, Babe set the home run record again with 54 home runs in a season with 171 RBIs. This has never been done before, and the people were loving it. He reset the standards of the game of baseball, turning it from a go-hard sport into one of strength and vigor. His popularity won over fans from around the country, but also lost him his first wife, Helen, in 1921. However, a year later, Babe met his second and last wife, Claire Hodgson. He did not marry her until 1929, once his first wife passed away in a fire. Claire and Babe adopted a girl named Julia, allowing George to have 2 children, Dorothy and Julia. 1927, Babe set the home run record yet again with a staggering 60 home runs. This would last for 34 years, long after Babe had retired. Ruth spent 14 years with the Yankees, allowing them to have 4 World Series victories and 7 appearances. In the 1932 World Series Yankees versus the Cubs, Babe made his famous called shot. He held his bat out towards center field, and on the next pitch, Babe hit the ball over the center field wall. Estimated travel was 500 feet. In 1934, Babe ended his career in New York and played for the Boston Braves for one season before retiring. George Herman Ruth Jr. hit 714 home runs over his 20 seasons in the major leagues. Two years later, in 1936, Babe Ruth was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. His fame and popularity stayed with him long after his baseball career ended. After his career was finished, Babe turned into more of a family man. He spent a lot of time with his wife Claire and two daughters, Dorothy and Julia. However, in 1946, it was discovered that Babe had cancer in the form of a tumor on his neck. Babe would fight for this battle for the next 2 years, but would eventually lose. On August 16, 1948, George Herman Ruth Jr. died due to cancer. Over 100,000 made an appearance to Babe's funeral. Babe Ruth's number 3 was retired in Yankee Stadium in 1948. George Herman's life was a true Hercules story. He came from being an unruly child to a disciplined baseball player. His hard work ethic has inspired thousands of young athletes to achieve careers like his. He also was a huge benefactor to the American economy in 1920s and 30s. He gave hope and inspiration to millions through the Great Depression and gave baseball the reputation it has today. The mark of a legend remains long after they pass away. It has been 70 years, and Babe Ruth is still regarded as the best player to ever see the field. His life will forever remain to be a testament to the great sport of baseball.